My mom was in the hospital 50 miles away. I was 19. We were pretty sure this was it. I was home alone. My parents' house is big. It's off the beaten path on a small lagoon. My dad had been staying up at the hospital. That night, I went to bed about 1 a.m. I was playing on my laptop. My room was in a separate wing of the house. It can be sealed off with a single locking door. The door was shut, but not locked. I have always been scared of the dark, so I had the lights in my wing on. So was the closet light. As I was messing around on GameFAQs, I saw the lights in my wing turn off. All of them. The band of light under the door went black. I hopped up in bed and stared at it. My bedroom door was unlocked, and I was debating getting up to lock it when the shut door slammed. As in, it sounded like someone straight up kicked the bottom of the door with all their strength. I remember squeaking in shock. It took me about 6 seconds to be up on both feet, with a blade about 4 paces back and just right of the door. I remember thinking if the door opened, I could be on whoever it was almost instantly. I was also silently cursing that there was no light under the door anymore. No way to see the shadow of whoever was out there. Nothing happened. I was fighting off the fear of the situation and stupidly decided that going on a fence was all that was left. I didn't have a phone in my room, and my Nokia was in another wing or the house charging. I threw the door open with my knife low and my left hand in a guarded position. There was no one there. I tossed the hallway light switch on. There was no one in my wing. There was no one in the house. The burglar alarm was still on. Confused, I turned on the main house lights and sealed the wing off with the locking door. I went back to my room and just sat there with my laptop open. My bedroom door now had a slight bow in it. A couple hours passed with me warily laying in bed. Around 3 a.m., the lights under the door went dark. Now I was terrified. My knife seemed pretty insignificant, and my previous dumb courage had ran out. I scooted my bed, no easy task, against my bedroom door, grateful the door opened inward. I retreated to my closet and waited for the sun to come up. When the skylight in my room got bright, my courage returned and I moved the bed and exited my room. The wing door had been unlocked, which required a key. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs in the main house and realized my dad was home. I felt a little foolish, as obviously he had been responsible for turning the lights off the second time. I lead my greeting with, "Oh, so it was you who turned all the lights off." He looked at me and said, "I got home about 10 minutes ago." I have zero clue what happened that night, but it never happened before that night or after. My parents built the house, and nothing untoward had ever taken place there. My bedroom door at my parents' house still has a bow in it to this day. This was over 15 years ago. My mom is still alive, and for that, I'm extremely grateful. Before I went to bed, I brought the dogs in, locked every door and window, and turned off every inside light. I was staying up, playing on my laptop when I thought I heard the front side door open. I could see the living room from my bedroom, so I peeked out and noticed that the computer screen was on. Only way it could be on was if the keyboard was touched or the mouse had been moved. And I saw nobody. I felt spooked, so I grabbed the pistol my dad left for me and walked through the house, loudly calling out that I wouldn't hesitate to shoot. I probably would have. I was shaking with fear. I checked the whole house, turned on every light, grabbed the dogs, double-checked the locks. They were still locked. Ran into my room, locked my door, and started texting friends in town. Keep in mind, it's like 11 p.m. and most everybody I knew was asleep. In the middle of texting, my door slammed against my door frame 3 times. No warning, no prior sounds, just bam, bam, bam. I froze in fear, staring at my door. I know I didn't imagine it because my dogs lifted their heads and ears at my door, but they didn't bark. I called the only person who was responding in hysterics. He did his best to calm me down via phone because he lived 6 hours away, and that was the best he could do. I didn't sleep at all that night. Next morning, I called my mom and told her what happened. Was she concerned? No. She got after me for not calling our neighbors for help. Really? It was 11 p.m. We lived in a tiny town of 3,000, and she wasn't worried that there was something in our house? Nothing was stolen, and I lived in the outskirts of town where the next-door neighbor was a half-mile away. The thing that concerns me is the dogs. They didn't bark once. One was a golden retriever and the other a yellow lab. Both would bark at anything unfamiliar and would protect me. They heard the door frame but did nothing. It still spooks me out thinking about it 11 years later. For as long as I live, I will never forget this. July 2010, staying alone in my grandparents' farmhouse, built 1885, Ontario, Canada. They all left that day, and I stayed behind because I was moving to Alberta and wanted to have some time to myself in the house before leaving. I could take the bus home to the city, so it wasn't a big deal. Plus, it was good that I did it as my grandparents sold the farm a couple years ago. Back to the scene. I'm alone in a 125-year-old house on 100+ acres of land in the middle of nowhere. Growing up, we all heard stories of ghosts in the house and on the property, blah blah blah. You know how it is. For anyone unaware, July in Ontario farm country is hot. So I was laying in my boxers with all the windows open, sweating my ass off trying to sleep. While spread eagle on my back, I was overcome with a cold shiver that ran from my hair to my toenails, and I could feel hands on my arms and legs. Just as I was about to get up, those hands I felt shoved my arms to my side and shoved my legs closed. I was frozen for a minute, or maybe longer, I couldn't tell. When I could get up, I scrambled to close all the windows and turn on all of the lights. Once I was done doing all of that, I ran back up to the bedroom and sat on the bed thinking, I'm fucked. No way that just happened. I could hear a noise downstairs, so I opened the door, and I could hear all of the cupboards and drawers in the kitchen being opened and slammed shut. I screamed at the top of my lungs, enough! And then it was dead silent. I mean, dead silent. I went downstairs, all the lights still on, deadbolts and locks still on, doors and windows still closed. I don't remember if I slept that night, but I have never been back to the property since. Grandparents told me it was a ghost named Beatrice, and she was probably mad I was still there, because she probably enjoyed the peace and quiet after everyone left. That's my story. I was sitting on my bed, and I was home alone, of course. There was a dog and a cat with me, and mind you, they always stir when something is around the house. The house has cameras around it, and a thing beeps when motion goes off at any of the camera. If it's the front camera, it announces it's the front door. My front door is inside a walled-off courtyard with a half-swing gate that I can see from 2 of my windows. If anybody ever walks in that gate, not only do I see them, but I always hear the gate, which sets off the dog. The only other path to the front door is from a larger gate that leads to the backyard. I can't see it, but it's large and noisy. All the walls are covered in thick vine, and there is zero way to quietly climb these walls or gates. So we have cameras, motion sensor alerts, animals, and myself. I'm sitting in my room, and the TV is paused. Now, if you are familiar with doorbells, when you push in, it makes 1 ding, and when you release the button, it makes your 2nd ding. I'm very familiar with this, because I always like to pause 3 seconds when I ring a friend's doorbell. So I'm sitting there, windows open, and the doorbell rings only once. I immediately freeze, and the 2nd ding never happens. The dog doesn't even look up. At this point, I feel like I imagined it, but I know what I heard for sure. I jump up and go straight to the windows, and within 20 seconds of the bell, I had eyes on the front door. Nothing at all, just 1 ding. Not to sound cool, but I grab my bat and head out the front door. I scope around and see nothing. I walk up to the doorbell, and it's been pressed in, and it's stuck. The button itself is also buzzing due to it being smashed in. It's literally wedged into itself. Scary? Okay, well, as I'm looking at the bell, it pops out in front of my eyes, and the last ding goes off, and I jumped out of my skin. This happened 6 months ago. I'm 29 years old and a male with adequate physical training of sorts. I ran in my room and called 2 people and made them talk to me on the phone for a while. When the homeowners were available to speak to the next day, I asked to check the cameras, and they did. They saw nothing. I shit you not. I'm not making this up at all. But they saw nothing on the camera. Not even me walking around and investigating. I showed them my call logs and had them check the minutes leading up to my phone calls, and fucking nothing. It's the only experience I've had in my life where I was truly afraid. And it's the most confused I've been. It's actually the first time I've talked about it since it happened, and I am getting massive chills. Who pushed in the button? It has a spring in it. What pushed the button? Well, my house was sort of out farther away from town. We had neighbors, but they were few and far between. There was a hiking trail opening across the street from our driveway, which was very long and can't be seen from the trail. My room had a large window facing out to the driveway. Anyway, I was home alone, cleaning my room and singing "We Are the Champions" extremely loudly, as well as playing it on my TV. Looked up and suddenly see a man power walking up my driveway very quickly. It's obvious no one is home but me, since there aren't any cars in the driveway. So I ran to the front door, which was open because it was hot AF outside, and locked it and closed and locked my window. Turns out bro-friend did not like that. I called 911 because he was still approaching my house and I was getting scared by his demeanor. And while on the phone with the 911 operator, he started banging on my front window by the door, and then the door itself. He tried kicking in the door and tried breaking the window. I went and hid in my mom's closet because it locked from the inside only with a knife until the cops showed up. By the time they showed up, he was gone, and there were hand and shoes prints all over the door and front window and some handprints on my bedroom window. They found him about an hour later walking up and down my street. He told them that he heard my pretty singing voice and just wanted to say hi. He was also drunk, but admitted to being sober at the time of the incident and started drinking after I rejected him. He also told them that he planned to come in and have some fun with me after he found that I was home alone, and that he was waiting for nighttime to come back. So yeah, had a lot of nightmares about that one. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything and helps me to get monetized in the future. Now watch Cute Kitten to relax.